In an era known as the Twilight Age, when the old beliefs had waned and temples had become more ruins than sanctuaries, the borders between the human world and the spirit realm began to blur. Among the scattered mountain towns of southeastern Dewa, legends told of ancient gods that once protected villages, receiving offerings and devotion. But now, those gods were silent, or so people believed. At the edge of the mist-shrouded forest, nestled beside a forgotten pagoda, was the village of Kirinoya. Its people were quiet and devout, clinging to traditions others had abandoned. Every spring, during the third full moon, they performed the moon ash rite, a ritual long said to keep away the dark spirits that haunted the forest beyond. Yuri, a boy of 17 with restless eyes and an impatient spirit, had no love for these rituals. He would have rather been in the city with his friends, watching football, and eating skewered meats, not kneeling on cold temple stone with incense smoke biting his nose. Yuri, show respect, his mother whispered, nudging him gently. He rolled his eyes but kept silent. Beside them, an old man in tattered robes sat cross-legged on the stone path outside the pagoda gate. Blindfolded and trembling, the man held out a small bronze bowl. Yuri glanced at him and felt a strange pang, an echo of something old, like déjà vu. The man's head suddenly lifted, though his eyes were covered. Your fate is tangled in the old blood, he rasped, voice dry like old parchment. Beware the red thread, boy. Yuri stepped back instinctively. Creepy old coot, he muttered, but deep down, the man's words clung like wet moss. Inside the pagoda, the ritual of moon ash began. Monks in faded robes chanted in a forgotten tongue, forming a circle around a large black urn. Sacred ash, collected over generations, was being sprinkled over ancient symbols painted on the floor. The lead monk, Master Kenzan, a gaunt figure with eyes like burning embers, stepped forward with a prayer staff topped with a jade carving of a dragon. Yuri's attention wandered again, until a shiver slithered down his spine. From the corner of the room, a girl in a crimson robe let out a shriek and collapsed. Her name was Saya, someone Yuri had seen around but never spoken to. Blood trickled from her nose, but it was thick, tar-like, and unnaturally dark. A few monks rushed to her side, but Master Kenzan motioned them away. He kneeled beside her, drew a circle in the air with 2 fingers, and pressed a jade bead against her forehead. The bead hissed. The shadows in the room danced, although no wind stirred. She's been marked, Kenzan said grimly. A vengeful spirit is clawing through her soul. Gasps rippled across the onlookers. Then, suddenly, Yuri felt something cold snake up his spine again, like fingers brushing the nape of his neck. His breath quickened. Was he imagining it? But when he glanced back at the entrance, the blind old man was gone. That night, the moon hung low and red like a bleeding eye. Yuri couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Saya's twitching form. Her face had changed. Her mouth had twisted too far, her teeth jagged, her eyes white like boiled eggs. The image refused to fade. Then he heard it. A whisper. Not outside his window, but inside his mind. You looked at me. You heard me. You are mine now. Yuri shot up in bed, heart pounding. Who's there? No answer. Just silence, thick and cloying. He turned on the light, nothing. But beneath his pillow was a slip of paper. He unfolded it slowly. 3 crimson characters had been painted with perfect brush strokes. Remember her. The next morning, he returned to the temple. He found Master Kenzan waiting at the gate, as though expecting him. The spirits follow you, the monk said without greeting. The veil thins around your soul. Yuri hesitated, then handed over the note. Kenzan frowned deeply. This is old blood magic. Forbidden since the sealing of the Ash Moon God. Yuri frowned. What does that mean? Kenzan turned and gestured for him to follow. It means you've been chosen for something. And you have very little time. They walked into a chamber below the pagoda, carved into the bedrock. Shelves of bones, charms, and dusty scrolls lined the walls. At the center stood a wooden stand holding a thick iron talisman shaped like a stylized eye. This, Kenzan said, is the seal of a Matsurin, the eye that watches. He placed it into Yuri's palm. The metal burned cold. You must keep it with you always. The spirit, she is not a ghost. She is something older, something broken. Her name was once whispered only in madness. Yuri tried to laugh it off, but the weight of the talisman sobered him. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the cavern. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere above, people screamed. They rushed upstairs. The square in front of the pagoda was chaos. Smoke curled from the offering shrine. Monks lay unconscious or worse. And Saya no longer herself floated 6 feet above the ground, surrounded by twisting black mist. Yuri froze. Her eyes locked onto his. She grinned. Found you. The villagers of Kirinoya fled in all directions, screaming as the girl once known as Saya hovered midair, her body rigid, eyes glowing white, and black tendrils of smoke writhing around her. The once quiet temple courtyard had become a battlefield of spirits, where the sacred and the damned collided. Yuri stood frozen, clutching the iron talisman in his trembling hand. The weight of it felt heavier now, like it pulsed with a heartbeat not his own. Use it. Master Kenzan shouted, shoving a protective prayer scroll into Yuri's other hand. That talisman is your only link to the Ash Moon God's blessing. Channel it, or she'll drag you into the between. The between. Yuri's thoughts spiraled, but instinct kicked in. Saya's corrupted voice shrieked, echoing across the courtyard. All who forget the old names shall be remembered. Through suffering. The wind howled, but it wasn't natural. It came from nowhere and everywhere, lifting debris, ripping through banners, tearing at reality like paper. The ground around Saya cracked in a perfect circle, symbols glowing red-hot. Kenzan began chanting, his voice deep, vibrating with the power that came from lifetimes of faith. Yuri, still unsure, raised the eye of Amatsurin toward the swirling mist. The talisman flared. A beam of silvery light surged from the center of the eye, lancing through the shadow surrounding Saya. She screamed not in pain, but rage. Her hand shot forward, and a tendril of darkness struck Yuri in the chest. The world stopped. He saw flashes. Memories not his own. An ancient temple consumed by flames. A woman in red weeping beneath a dying tree. A god with no face, bound in chains forged from moonlight. Then blackness. When Yuri came to, he was lying on a bed of moss deep within the forest, the temple nowhere in sight. Night had fallen. Crickets chirped, and mist curled low across the ground like slumbering serpents. "What the hell?" he whispered, sitting up. The eye of Amatsurin was still clutched in his palm, now faintly glowing blue. His chest ached where the spirit had touched him. He pulled his shirt aside and gasped. A mark had been burned into his skin, 3 crescent moons overlapping, like a forgotten sigil. Suddenly, branches rustled nearby. Yuri spun around, raising the talisman, ready to fight or run. But instead of a monster, a figure stepped out of the trees. She was young, maybe his age, dressed in a tattered black kimono embroidered with silver lotus blossoms. Her hair was tied with twine, her eyes the color of a dying flame. "Who are you?" he asked. The girl tilted her head. "You can see me." "Obviously." "No," she said, stepping closer. "I mean really see me." She touched the mark on his chest. It burned. "You bear the moon's curse," she said. "It's begun again." Yuri pulled away. "What are you talking about?" She stared into his eyes, as if weighing his soul. "My name is Rin. I was once the vessel of the Crimson Maiden, the spirit that now rides your friend Saya." "What?" Rin gestured to the trees. "Come. I'll explain. But first, we need to get out of this forest. The boundary's broken, and the lost ones walk again." As they made their way through the foggy woods, Rin spoke of ancient pacts, of gods whose names had been buried for centuries, and a ritual gone wrong generations ago when the Crimson Maiden was meant to be sealed within the Moon Ash Temple. But something fractured the seal. A betrayal. Blood spilled where there should have been sacrifice. "She wasn't always like this," Rin said, voice low. "She was once a guardian spirit. But rage twisted her." Yuri's thoughts raced. "Then why was I marked?" "Because she chose you. Or because the eye chose you." Either way, you're bound. They emerged from the woods into a clearing, where an abandoned shrine stood in ruins. The trees here bent away from the center, as if afraid. The air was heavy. "She'll be looking for you now," Rin said. "She'll come in dreams, in reflections, through voices that aren't your own." Yori stepped into the clearing. Something beneath the shrine called to him, whispers on the edge of thought. "She was sealed here once," Rin added. "This was her cradle. And her prison." Suddenly, the earth trembled. A howl echoed through the trees, inhuman, grief-stricken, vengeful. Mist surged forward, engulfing the shrine in shadow. Rin's eyes widened. "She found us." Yori raised the talisman, and the blue light burst forth again. From the mist, a silhouette emerged, tall, feminine, and crowned in horns woven from shadow. The Crimson Maiden. She moved without sound, her dress rippling like liquid ink. Her face was not Saya's anymore, it was ageless, beautiful, and terrifying, a goddess born from ruin. "You are mine," she whispered. The mark on Yori's chest ignited. He fell to his knees, screaming. Visions filled his mind again, a sacrificial altar, a blade of bone, a crying girl bound in silk. But one image lingered, an ancient scroll sealed behind a golden mirror, the key to unraveling the maiden's curse. With his last ounce of strength, Yori gritted his teeth and roared, "Rin! Break the circle!" Rin flung a pouch of sacred ash into the air. Symbols ignited around them, forcing the maiden back. Her scream shook the trees, but the mist receded. For now. Yori collapsed, sweat-drenched and shivering. Rin knelt beside him. "We don't have much time. That scroll. It's real, isn't it?" He nodded, trembling. "We have to find it before she finds the next vessel." The sky overhead turned violet as the wind whispered secrets through the trees. And so began the hunt for the scroll of severance, the only thing that could end the Crimson Maiden's reign. Or awaken something far worse. Dawn broke over the horizon like a bruised wound, casting copper light over the scorched village of Kirinoya. Smoke curled gently from what remained of the Moon Ash Temple, now a half-collapsed shell of burned wood and shattered idols. Yori stood at the edge of the ruins, the eye of a Matsuran tucked into his shirt, warm against his chest like a warning heartbeat. Rin stood beside him, arms crossed. "You saw the scroll in your vision, right?" Yori nodded. "Behind a mirror. Framed in gold. There were runes carved into the frame. I couldn't read them, but they felt familiar, like I was supposed to." Rin turned her gaze to the mountains. "There's only one place left in these lands that keeps golden-framed spirit mirrors, the Hall of Reflections, deep inside the Valley of the Withered Pines." Yori blinked. "That sounds extremely cursed." "It is," she replied flatly. They had no choice. Their journey took 2 days, each step deeper into the forgotten paths once guarded by the Ash Moon Order monks who had long disappeared from history. On the second night, they made camp by a river shrouded in blue mist. Ren traced symbols into the ground around their fire, her fingers moving with graceful precision. "Protection ward," she said. "They won't stop the Crimson Maiden, but they'll confuse the weaker lost." Yori sat, poking the fire with a stick. "Why me?" he asked. "Why not Kenzan? Or someone actually trained for this stuff?" Ren didn't answer immediately. The firelight flickered across her pale face as she finally murmured, "Because the I chose you. It doesn't pick warriors. It picks those with cracks." "Gee. Thanks." "Cracks let light in," she added quietly. That night, Yori dreamt of the Crimson Temple again, but it was whole this time, pristine and glowing. Inside, the Crimson Maiden waited, seated on a throne of black bone. Her eyes held galaxies of rage and sorrow. "You dream because I allow it," she said. "You carry my mark, child of the modern dust." Yori tried to speak, but his mouth wouldn't open. She rose and touched his forehead. "Find the mirror. Shatter it, and you shatter me. But know this: mirrors reflect. And reflection always reveals more than truth." He awoke gasping. The Valley of the Withered Pines wasn't so much a valley as a graveyard of twisted trees, their trunks scorched black, their roots like claws. No birds sang here. No wind stirred. The silence was a presence of its own. At the heart of the valley stood the Hall of Reflections. It was enormous, half buried beneath the earth, covered in crawling moss and cracked stone. Despite its decay, its architecture remained oddly regal, with tall spires that reached like skeletal fingers toward the pale sky. "This place wasn't built by humans," Ren whispered. The doors opened with a push, moaning like a wounded beast. Inside, a long corridor stretched into darkness, lined with shattered mirrors. Reflections flickered, some moved on their own. Yori stepped cautiously, the eye pulsing stronger the deeper they went. Eventually, they found it, a golden-framed mirror, untouched by time, resting atop an altar of moonstone. Carved into the frame were runes that glowed faintly as Yori approached. "That's it," he breathed. "That's the one." But the moment he reached out, the mirror shimmered and spoke. "3 truths must be shown. 3 trials must be passed. Or be consumed by the self that never was." The world tilted. Ren screamed his name as Yori was pulled into the mirror. He stood in a replica of his room. Everything was identical down to the posters on the wall, the books, the scratched desk. Except, something was off. He turned. A figure sat on his bed. It was him. or rather a version of him. Hair combed, posture perfect, dressed in expensive clothes. "Hello, me," the double said with a smile too wide. "I'm who you could have been. Confident. Successful. Free." Yuri backed away. "You're not real." "I'm more real than the scared little coward you are," the double sneered. "You want to fight ancient gods? You can't even stand up to your own mother." Yuri clenched his fists. The double charged. They clashed not with fists, but with memory. Yuri saw flashes of his life, the arguments, the loneliness, the nights he cried without knowing why. But he didn't look away. "I know who I am," he growled, holding the eye. "And I accept it." The double screamed as the mirror around them cracked. Trial 1 complete. Next, Yuri found himself in the Moon Ash Temple intact, golden, filled with light. The villagers bowed to him. His mother stood beside him, smiling. "You've saved us," she said. "You're a hero." The warmth filled him, but something felt wrong. He turned to Rin. She stood in a corner, expression unreadable. Then he realized, she was fading. "This world is made of your wishes," a voice echoed. "To stay is bliss. To leave is pain." Yuri stepped toward Rin. "This isn't real." His mother called out. "Stay with me. We can be happy." He looked into her eyes and stepped past her. Rin solidified. The temple cracked. Trial 2 complete. The final trial was silence. Endless, deafening silence. He stood in a black void, alone. Even the eye didn't glow. His heartbeat was the only sound. For what felt like hours, he wandered. Then, whispers. Not outside, but within. "You are nothing. A speck. Forgotten. Replaceable." He dropped to his knees. But then he remembered Rin's words. Cracks let light in. He reached inside himself. The pain. The fear. The memories. All of it. And from the depths of his chest, the eye blazed. A beam shot through the darkness and the void shattered like glass. Yuri awoke on the temple floor, clutching the scroll. Rin pulled him upright. "You did it?" He opened the scroll. It read, "To sever the maiden's bond, the blood that began must end. Only the vessel of the vessel can break the chain." They both stared. "What does that mean?" Yuri whispered. Rin's face darkened. "It means we need Saya's bloodline. Or hers." and I think I might be her descendant. Thunder rumbled in the distance. The Crimson Maiden had felt the scroll's awakening. And she was coming. The wind howled across the ruined valley as Yuri and Rin stood beneath the cracked arch of the Hall of Reflections. The sacred scroll trembled in Yuri's hands, its ink glowing faintly as if reacting to the air itself. Overhead, the clouds gathered in a spiral, tinged red like a wound in the sky. "Are you sure about this?" Yuri asked, voice low. Rin didn't answer immediately. She had gone pale, staring at the scroll's final line, "Only the vessel of the vessel can break the chain." "I never knew my mother," she said quietly. "I was raised by a wanderer monk who told me I was gifted. But when I was 7, I had visions of fire and screaming. My body used to convulse at night. He told me I was cursed. That's when he sealed my spirit away in a jade ring and abandoned me in the forest." Yuri clenched his jaw. "And now the Crimson Maiden's using Saya as a host. Because she's related to you." Rin nodded. "Saya is my cousin. Her family left the village years ago to escape the ritualists. But blood calls to blood. The curse doesn't forget." A distant thunderclap rolled across the valley. "She's getting closer," Rin said. "And she's angry." They descended from the withered pines and made for the shrine of the Forgotten Tongue, an ancient sanctuary hidden deep in the Ashwood ravine. The scroll had indicated it as the site of the original pact between the Moon Ash God and the villagers. If the chain was to be broken, it would have to be here. The ravine was a jagged tear in the landscape, filled with mist and the whisper of unseen rivers. As they trekked through thorny underbrush and slippery moss-covered stones, Yuri paused. "Hey, Rin." She turned. "What happens if we fail?" Rin stared at him, then said softly, "Then the Crimson Maiden becomes whole again. Her essence will merge with the dying god in the sealed moon vault, and she'll be reborn as the Blood Mother. A new deity. Not one of balance. One of vengeance." Yuri sighed. Cool. So basically, we're trying to prevent the apocalypse." "Pretty much." When they reached the shrine, it was nearly dusk. The building had partially collapsed, but the sacred altar remained intact, an obsidian slab carved with celestial glyphs, surrounded by moon ash lamps that had not burned in centuries. The moment Yuri stepped near the altar, the eye of a Matsurin vibrated violently against his chest. He gritted his teeth and pulled it free, placing it at the center of the slab. The scroll instructed them to prepare 3 components. A drop of blood from the vessel's descendant. Ash from a moon-burnt offering. A name written in the Forgotten Tongue. Rin took a dagger and, without hesitation, cut a shallow line across her palm. Blood dripped onto the altar, sizzling as it touched the glyphs. Yuri retrieved ash from the scroll's satchel, the remnants of the sacrificial tree used in the ancient rites. Now came the hardest part, the name. Yuri held the brush, staring at the blank strip of sacred cloth. The scroll had warned them, names are power. Names are gates. If the name is wrong, the mirror will crack. He closed his eyes and suddenly he heard her. The Crimson Maiden. You dare unmake me? She whispered in his mind. You, a boy of broken fears and shallow courage. He grit his teeth. I am Yuri Tsukiane. And I am not afraid of you. You will be, she hissed. Do you know what they did to me? Bound me in silk and silence. Buried me in moonstone. I was the voice of the forgotten. The lover of the old gods. And they called me demon. Yuri's hand trembled but he moved. He wrote a single name in the forbidden tongue. Anshira. The name of the Crimson Maiden before she was a spirit. Before she was hatred. The shrine trembled. The air rippled. And the altar flared with a column of light. Rin cried out as her blood-marked pulsed. The talisman floated, spinning. The ground cracked beneath them and from it, a scream erupted, raw and agonizing. A rib tore open above the altar and from it, Saya's body descended like a marionette, arms limp, eyes vacant. Yuri rushed to catch her. She's still alive. He yelled. Saya, can you hear me? No response. Her eyes blinked once. Then again. And then she screamed. But it wasn't her voice. It was Anshira's. Rin raised both hands, speaking a chant that made the glyphs glow hotter. By blood's memory, by ash's sorrow, by the name unspoken I call the chains to break. The eye of Amatsurin cracked and from it, a blinding light enveloped them all. Yuri found himself in a space of stars. Before him stood Anshira, not monstrous, not vengeful, but a young woman with raven black hair and bleeding hands. Do you understand now? She asked. I do, he whispered. They turned me into a curse, she said. But I only wanted to be heard. He reached out. I hear you now. And I forgive you. She wept. The stars collapsed. Yuri awoke, coughing, back at the altar. Rin sat beside Saya, who was breathing, her eyes no longer possessed. The eye of Amatsurin was gone. The scroll had turned to dust. It's over, Rin whispered. We did it. But far above them, in the hollow of the red moon, something stirred. A shadow. A whisper. A god unsealed but not yet born. And somewhere, deep in Yuri's soul, a new mark began to form. 3 days had passed since the breaking of the chain. Kirinoya village, once wrapped in spiritual silence and dread, had begun to stir with cautious hope, The villagers who had survived gathered at the base of the Moon Ash Temple's ruins to pay respects. Though Saya remained unconscious, her breath had steadied. Her body no longer pulsed with the darkness of the Crimson Maiden. Yuri sat beside her, eyes fixed on the horizon. The crimson glow that once haunted the moon was gone. But his heart told him something different, something unfinished. Rin returned from the shrine with an old satchel slung across her shoulder. "You're not sleeping," she said, sitting beside him. "Can't," Yuri replied. "Every time I close my eyes, I hear it." A whisper. Low. Old. She nodded. "Me too." The seal broke. But something else was underneath it. Something older than Anshira. Yuri turned to her. "You mean, the god she mentioned?" Rin pulled out an aged scroll far more weathered than the last. "I found this beneath the altar. It predates the maiden. It speaks of a god that once devoured stars and was bound beneath the hollow moon." She unrolled the scroll, revealing sketches of a coiled figure like a dragon made of glass and smoke with eyes that were eclipses. "Its name," she whispered, "was Varishka." The scroll detailed a forbidden rite called the reversal binding, used once by the Ash Moon Order to imprison a celestial entity. The rite required 3 sigils carved into mortal souls, the heart of a god-sent vessel, and the fire of forgotten truth. Yuri stood and paced. "So let me guess. I'm one of the sigils." "You already bear the mark." "That was Anshira's last gift to you," Rin said. "And I carry her blood. I may be the vessel." Yuri glanced toward Saya. "What about her?" "She's fading," Rin said quietly. "Her spirit is fractured. Unless we do something soon, she won't wake again." Yuri clenched his fists. "So what do we do?" "We go to the Hollow Moon Gate," Rin said. "And we wake the god before it fully awakens on its own." Yuri blinked. "That sounds like a terrible idea." "It's the only chance we have to bind it before it fully remembers itself." Their journey led them to the highest peak of the Obsidian Ranges, where lightning constantly kissed the mountain tops and the sky cracked open with violent storms. The path to the Hollow Moon Gate was said to only appear to those marked by the ancient blood. On the 3rd night of climbing, the wind died. The stars disappeared. And the gate appeared. It wasn't a structure in the usual sense. It was a ripple in the sky itself, a massive vertical tear through which no light passed. It hummed, as if 100 voices chanted from within. Yuri stepped closer. The mark on his chest glowed gold. Rin drew in a shaky breath. "We go together." He nodded. The moment they passed through, time distorted. They stood in a world without gravity, surrounded by floating shards of ancient temples, drifting through constellations suspended in glass. At the center of this space coiled a massive shape, a divine being bound by rings of moonlight and runes of silence. Its form twisted like a serpent, head crowned with a halo of eclipses. Verushka. Its eyes opened. "You are late," it said, not aloud, but through every cell in their bodies. Yuri stumbled back. Rin gasped. "Why did you imprison Anshira?" Yuri asked. The god's laughter rippled through reality. "She begged me to remember her. And I did. So she broke the seal, and woke me." Rin stepped forward. "We're not here to unseal you. We're here to stop what comes next." "You mean the dreaming?" Verushka hissed. "The unraveling. The rebirth of God through mortal fear. You cannot stop it. But I will offer you a choice." The space trembled. A mirror appeared floating before Yuri. Inside it, he saw himself, but not as himself. He wore robes of light and fire. His voice called thunder. People bowed to him. "I offer you divinity," Verushka said. "Become the dream walker. My emissary. Guide the rebirth." Yuri stepped back. "You think I'd betray my world?" "I think," the god whispered, "you already have doubts." Yuri looked away, but the image clung to him. Rin stepped between them. "Enough. I know what I am." She drew a ceremonial dagger from her robe and slashed her palm again, blood dripping into the void. "I offer my body," she chanted, "not as vessel of vengeance, but as chain of balance." Her blood floated, twisting in the air, shaping itself into glowing runes. Yuri added his own, cutting across his hand and clasping hers. The runes combined. Verushka hissed in fury. "You would bind me again. I am the void memory. I am the sleeper of stars. And we," Yuri shouted, "are the broken who choose." The runes surged into the god's form. The eye of a Matsuran's remnants flared from Yuri's chest, reassembling in light. It expanded, becoming a wheel of symbols rotating around Verushka's core. With one final scream, the god convulsed, then froze. A hush fell across the cosmos. They awoke at the base of the obsidian range. Saya opened her eyes. The moon returned to its pale glow. And deep inside Yuri, a sliver of God remained silent, waiting. For gods never die. They sleep. And they remember. The village of Kirinoya, once a hushed relic among the moss-laced mountains, had returned to uneasy peace. Lanterns glowed again along its winding paths. Children played in the temple garden. But beneath the calm, a deeper current stirred, one that none could name, but all could feel. Yuri stood alone on the temple terrace, his eyes scanning the now pure moonlight. Though they had bound Vereshka within the celestial prison, a truth remained etched into his bones: the seal was not destruction, it was delay. Behind him, footsteps approached. "You still hear it?" Rin asked, her voice low. Yori didn't turn. "It's quieter now. Like breathing. As if something ancient is dreaming beneath my skin." Rin stepped beside him. "Saya's stable. She doesn't remember anything, just flashes. Faces. Voices. The mirror. That might be a blessing." A soft wind blew through the trees, carrying a faint sound, distant humming, ethereal and cold. They both froze. "Did you hear that?" They ran toward the source, passing through moonlit alleys and across stone bridges until they reached the old shrine of the wind bell. There, hanging beneath its torii gate, was a talisman they'd never seen before: white silk, stitched with a strange black sigil. It fluttered in a wind that didn't exist. Yori's mark pulsed. Rin's eyes narrowed. "That's not from this realm." A whisper echoed, from nowhere and everywhere. "The pale choir sings. The seal has cracks." And the bell touched awaken. Before they could react, the sky rippled. A figure stepped from the air itself, hooded, robed in ivory, face masked with an antlered helm. It bowed slowly. "Yori Tsukiane," the being said, voice calm as a winter stream. "You are summoned." They called themselves the Choir of the Pale Root, ancient wardens from the age before language, guardians of the first seals ever carved into time. Yori and Rin were taken, no, drawn into a sanctum that existed between heartbeats. It resembled a massive amphitheater, filled with hooded figures singing in dissonant harmony, each voice ringing into the void and folding into the next like waves colliding. "The sealing of Vereshka," the lead choirman explained, "has awakened an imbalance." Another voice joined, "Anshira was never meant to be bound to mortal pain." Another, "You have ignited echoes in the chasm of becoming." Yori stepped forward, defiant. "Then help us. Tell us how to fix it." They sang his name. "He who wears the eye. He who bears the blood gift. He who dreams through the crack." And then, silence. "We cannot help you. But we can show you." In an instant, the chamber melted into vision. Yori found himself in a library that stretched beyond comprehension. Shelves made of bone, scrolls glowing faintly, and doors that led to memories not his own. He walked. Each door he passed whispered pieces of a forgotten tale. A god fell in love with a dream and was cursed to forget. The dream bore a daughter who wept in fire. The daughter became hate, then a whisper, then a shrine. Her name was Anshira. Her womb was a gate. The final door opened into flame. Yori saw it all. the true origin of the Crimson Maiden. Anshira had been the vessel of the first voice, the god who gave language to the stars. When she was corrupted by immortal ritual, the fragments of that god's essence were sealed within her, explaining her madness, her rage, her power. She had not been a curse. She had been a cradle. And now, that god, what little remained was stirring. Back in the sanctum, Rin wept silently. "I saw it too," she said. "We didn't bind Verishka. We woke something older. Something deeper." The choir sang again. "You must seek the mirrored womb where Anshira's final echo rests. The first voice sleeps within." Yuri exhaled. "And if it wakes?" The choir fell silent. Then the oldest among them whispered, "Then language itself unravels." They returned to Kirinoya in a rainstorm. Saya waited in the garden, sheltered beneath the peach trees. "I've been having dreams," she said. "Not nightmares. Just places I've never seen. Voices I don't understand." Yuri looked at Rin. "She's connected. Still." Saya touched her heart. "I don't want to forget. I want to help." Rin hesitated, then nodded. "The journey ahead is to the western salt flats. There's a shrine submerged beneath glassy water. That's where the womb is hidden." As they prepared to depart, the wind carried another whisper. This time, not a threat, but a plea. "Remember my name, not as curse, but as song." And far, far above, a single star blinked out. The world had begun to forget its own language. And the three travelers walked into silence, where meaning itself trembled. The journey to the western salt flats stretched for 5 long days across windswept meadows, dying forests, and empty plains where even the birds had forgotten to sing. Yuri, Rin, and Saya traveled under a sky that felt increasingly distant, as if the heavens themselves were recoiling from the earth. Each night, they took shelter beneath trees twisted by salt winds, or in crumbling shrines abandoned for centuries. The closer they drew to the flats, the more distorted the world became. Time no longer moved evenly. Shadows stretched unnaturally. At dawn, the stars still hung overhead, refusing to fade. "I don't think this is just the aftermath of Verishka," Rin murmured one night as they huddled near the embers of a smoky fire. "Something else is leaking in, something that wasn't supposed to wake." Saya stared quietly into the flames. "I hear singing in my sleep. Voices calling me by names I don't know. I think they're mine. Past lives. Or maybe just echoes." Yuri, fingering the eye of a Matsurin that now floated in a locket on his chest, nodded. "The pale choir said the womb contains the first voice. If that's true, then this place might be the very source of human language. Thought. Meaning. He didn't add the obvious. If it unravels, so does everything else. The salt flats were a sight unlike anything they had imagined. A vast ocean of glassy, reflective salt spread out in all directions, smooth as ice, eerily silent. Not a ripple marred its surface. The horizon shimmered with mirages, forgotten cities, impossible towers, and sometimes reflections of places that didn't exist. They stepped carefully, for the salt cracked if too much weight was applied. After hours of walking, they came upon it. A circular depression in the center of the flats, ringed with obsidian stones and filled with perfectly clear water. Beneath the surface, a structure slumbered, an ancient shrine shaped like an egg split open, its interior pulsing with soft, silver light. The mirrored womb, Rin breathed. They stood in awe, watching as glyphs on the surface of the water swirled, forming, and dissolving like clouds. Saya knelt at the edge. "It's calling me." Before Yuri or Rin could react, she stepped into the water and vanished. "Saya." Yuri lunged in after her, Rin right behind him. The sensation was not of drowning, but of remembering. Memories not their own swirled through the water like drifting leaves. A giant tree speaking in light. A baby born with stars in its lungs. A woman holding an hourglass of voices, whispering lullabies that bent time. When Yuri emerged on the other side, he stood in a circular chamber of endless reflections. Mirrors lined the walls, but they did not reflect the body. Instead, they reflected truths. One showed Rin as a child, alone in a broken shrine, fingers stained with ink. Another showed Saya dancing through a burning village, her hair aflame but her eyes peaceful. One showed Yuri as an old man, alone, smiling as he carved runes into a tree that whispered back. A soft voice spoke. "You seek the first voice. But you are already made of it." The chamber's center pulsed. The air shimmered, and from the deepest point of the shrine rose a figure not quite male, not quite female, and not entirely human. Its form was woven from threads of silver light, tangled in glyphs that shifted endlessly. It had no face, but its presence filled the room like a symphony in a storm. "I am Ashuriel," the being said. "I am what spoke the first truth." Yuri stepped forward. "Are you the first voice?" "I am a fragment," Ashuriel replied. The voice was shattered when mortals named fear. When they carved curses into each other. "I remain, but I am fading." Rin narrowed her eyes. "Why did Anshira carry your essence? Was she chosen?" "No," Ashuriel said. "She heard me. She was the only one who listened. And for that, she was burned. Buried. Blamed." Saya stepped beside them. Her expression was blank, but her voice was ancient. "I was born of echoes. I am the cry before the name. I remember." Ashuriel approached her. You are the last vessel, it said. The final syllable. It reached into its own chest and pulled forth a shard of light, shaped like a character that no human language could contain. This is my name. The last of it? If spoken by the unbound, it will rebuild the tongue of balance. But it must be spoken willingly. And in sacrifice. Rin frowned. Sacrifice. Yuri's heart sank. One of us has to die. Ashuriel bowed. One must become the silence. To hold the word forever. The chamber dimmed. The mirrors began to crack. You do not have long. Outside the shrine, the sky had darkened. The salt flats boiled as the air split open in spirals of ink. Vayrishka was stirring again, but not as itself. Something else had begun to rise. A chorus of false voices. Of imitation. The world was beginning to speak without meaning. The pale choir's warning rang clear: if the first voice is lost, language becomes plague. Thought becomes disease. Emotion becomes echo. Back in the chamber, Saya stepped forward. I remember now. I was the song of the stars. I don't want to forget again. No, Yuri said quickly, grabbing her hand. We'll find another way. Ashuriel shook its head. There is no other way. Rin stepped beside him. Then we all choose. Together, they held the shard. And for a moment, the chamber vanished. They stood within a memory, the memory of creation. There, the voice sang the universe into being. One syllable at a time. When the world returned, the shrine was gone. The salt flats were cracked, but silent. In the center stood Yuri alone. No Rin. No Saya. Only the eye of a Matsurin glowing dimly on the ground beside him. And then, from the wind, came a single, new word. Spoken in no language he had ever known, but one he understood with every part of his soul. They had spoken it. And they had become the silence. Yuri fell to his knees. And the sky, for the first time in eternity, truly listened. The sun hovered uncertainly on the horizon, caught between night and dawn. Kirinoya, now bathed in amber stillness, lay untouched by the chaos that once rippled through its skies. But within the silence, something had changed. Something had ended. And something new had begun. Yuri wandered the northern cliffs beyond the village, following an instinct deeper than memory. His footsteps felt heavy, as though the land itself resisted each step. The eye of a Matsurin hung dormant from his neck, its once brilliant glow now a faint, pulsating ember. Are you watching, Rin? He whispered into the wind. Are you listening, Saya? No answer. Only the rustle of pine needles, the cry of a lone crow above, and the echo of a word that could never be spoken aloud again. The sacrifice had been real. But it hadn't been death, not completely. 3 days earlier, Yori had returned alone from the salt flats. The villagers welcomed him in awed silence, sensing something different about him. A monk from the outer provinces attempted to cleanse him with salt and chant. The talisman shattered in the monk's hands. "I carry no curse," Yori had told him. "I carry a memory." He'd said little else. Each night since, his dreams were filled with shifting landscapes, memories that weren't his, stars that whispered secrets, and glimpses of Rin and Saya walking paths that curved through endless twilight. They were not dead. They had become something else. Tonight, as the moon rose full and pale, Yori reached the ruins of the old wind bell shrine once more. The talisman from the pale choir still fluttered beneath the archway, though now its ink had changed, rearranged into a symbol Yori recognized. The symbol of recollection. Suddenly, the wind died. The world held its breath. And the bell rang. Not from wind but from within Yori's chest. He collapsed to his knees as his vision blurred and the dream overtook him. In the dream, he stood upon a bridge of glass, suspended over a sea of ink. Below, infinite stars churned and faded. Across from him stood two figures, Rin, clad in robes of pale dusk, her eyes twin galaxies, and Saya, dressed in threads of silver and red, hair flowing like a river of time. They smiled. "You came," Saya said, voice clear as birdsong. "I never left," Yori breathed. "Where? What is this?" Rin stepped forward. "This is the dream that remains. The seam between reality and silence. When we spoke the name, we were not destroyed. We were folded, woven into the fabric of the new tongue." "New tongue?" Yori echoed. Saya nodded. "A language that binds not with meaning, but with understanding. One that cannot be used to deceive. One that mends instead of wounds. And you're part of it now." "We are it," Rin said. She reached forward, touching Yori's heart. "And so are you." Light blossomed from the point of contact. The eye of a Matsurin long silent flared back to life. But it was no longer just a talisman. It was now a glyph seed, a living symbol of the pact made between mortal and God, voice and silence, memory and future. "You must plant it," Rin said. "In the soil where the first word was spoken." "Where was that?" Yori asked. Saya pointed skyward. And above them, suspended in impossible distance, the sky mirror shimmered, a place where gods once gathered to sing existence into form. "You have to go there," Saya whispered. "You must carry the name into the sky." Yori felt his body tremble. "I'm just a boy." "You were," Rin smiled. But now you are the echo bearer. He awoke with tears on his cheeks, heart pounding. The wind bell hung still again, but something lay beneath it, a small glass feather etched with ancient glyphs. Rin's memory. Saya's dream. His mission. He returned to Kirinoya only briefly to retrieve what he needed, a traveler's pack, the ceremonial robe of the Dream Ward monks, and a letter to leave behind for anyone who might wonder what became of him. Then he climbed through the forest of starlight pines, across the high ice cliffs, beyond the peak of Senzoku, where only cloud dragons once dared to sleep, until he reached the sky mirror, a circular plateau of translucent crystal that reflected not the world below, but the world within. There, Yori stood in silence. And slowly, with trembling hands, he placed the glyph seed at the center of the mirror. It pulsed. The sky bent. Light bled through every crevice of space. And then he sang. Not with voice, but with memory. With pain, and joy, and silence, and all the words he had never known how to say. The glyph seed bloomed. From it rose a tree not of wood, but of threads. Threads that reached upward, piercing the heavens, reconnecting stars with forgotten voices. The world would remember. Not through gods. Not through fear. But through choice. And far away, in the dream that remains, Rin and Saya smiled. For the story was no longer just a tragedy. It was a beginning. The world had changed, though it still bore the scars of what had been broken. Kirinoya's fields were greener, the air lighter, and even the old temple ruins seemed to hum softly with the newfound energy. The sky mirror's song had woven through the stars, stitching together shattered echoes into a symphony of renewal. But the renewal came with its own shadows. Yori returned from the sky mirror's peak, his body weary but his spirit alight with the purpose of the echo bearer. The glyph seed's power pulsed gently against his chest, a living heartbeat binding him to the fabric of the new tongue. Yet, not all embraced this change. Far beyond the horizon, where forgotten gods lingered, a gathering began. Beneath the veil of dusk, the last of the old ones stirred. They who had resisted the shift, the rewiring of cosmic will. Among them was a figure draped in midnight cloaks, known only as the Whisperer. His eyes held the void between stars, his voice was a ripple in the mind. He spoke softly, but the words cut like obsidian blades. The new tongue fractures the silence we've kept. The balance unravels. The dreamers awaken. They must be stopped before they sing the world into chaos. Back in Kirinoya, Yori sensed the coming storm long before the winds howled. He gathered Rin and Saya beneath the flowering cherry trees, their petals drifting like fragile memories in the spring breeze. We have done more than heal, Yori said. We have awakened forces older than gods. Rin's gaze was steady. The pale choir warned us. The echoes call to those who fear the new song. We must be ready. Saya touched the glyph seed glowing in Yuri's hand. I feel it too. A shadow creeping at the edges of my dreams. That night, the village was cloaked in unnatural silence. No animals stirred, no insects hummed. Only the faintest murmur of distant voices chants in a language older than Earth itself. Yuri stood at the temple's entrance, eyes scanning the darkness. Then, like a ripple in still water, figures emerged. Cloaked and hooded, their faces hidden beneath veils of smoke and ash. The children of silence. They had come to unmake the new tongue. A fierce battle ensued beneath the moonlight. Yuri, Rin, and Saya fought with the power of words, unspoken glyphs of binding, chants of protection, and the raw force of shared memory. The children wielded silence as a weapon, erasing sound and light where they stepped. But the trio's unity was a song louder than any void. With every incantation, the earth pulsed with rebirth. With every breath, the world whispered hope. As dawn broke, the children of silence retreated, dissolving into shadows. But their threat lingered. Yuri looked toward the rising sun, resolve hardening in his heart. This is only the beginning. Rin nodded. The balance will always be a dance of light and shadow. Saya smiled softly. But together, we hold the melody. Above the village, the stars twinkled with renewed brilliance. The sky mirror reflected the first light of day. And somewhere, deep within the cosmos, the dream that remains hummed with endless possibility. The story was far from over. It was a song that would echo through eternity. Days turned into weeks, and the fragile peace in Kirinoya seemed to hold, but beneath the calm surface, currents of darkness stirred. The children of silence, though repelled, had left their mark, a lingering void that whispered doubt and fear into the hearts of the villagers. Yuri, Rin, and Saya spent their time strengthening the bonds woven by the new tongue. They taught the villagers the glyphs, the songs, the silent prayers that could shield against the creeping silence. But even as their influence grew, the shadows deepened. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Yuri stood on the edge of the village, gazing at the pale crescent moon. The eye of a Matsurin pulsed faintly, but a chill ran down his spine, a warning. Behind him, footsteps approached, slow, deliberate. He turned to see a figure cloaked in shimmering black, a mask of shifting silver concealing their face. I have come with a warning, the stranger said, voice both melodic and haunting. The dream that remains is fractured. Yuri narrowed his eyes. Who are you? I am Lyra, the figure replied, removing the mask to reveal eyes like liquid starlight. A dream weaver, keeper of lost songs. She stepped closer, the air around her shimmering. The balance you seek is fragile. The old ones conspire, seeking to reclaim what was lost. The children of silence are but pawns. Rin and Saya appeared behind Yuri, tense but ready. Lyra raised a hand, and images flickered in the air, visions of a cosmic war, shattered stars, and a celestial crown broken into fragments. The fragments of Bereshka's power scatter across the realms, Lyra continued. If gathered by those who thirst for dominion, they could unravel the new tongue entirely. Yori clenched his fists. Then we must find them first. Lyra smiled, a mix of sorrow and resolve. Indeed. But beware, the path is perilous, and the shadows sing with a hunger that consumes hope. The next morning, under a sky streaked with dawn's first light, Yori, Rin, Saya, and Lyra set forth on a new journey. Their quest, to seek the scattered fragments of power, to mend the dream that remains before darkness could claim it. As they departed, the village watched silently, the weight of the unknown settling like a mist. And somewhere beyond the stars, the cosmos held its breath, awaiting the next verse in the eternal song. The road ahead was uncharted, and the weight of fate pressed heavily upon Yori and his companions. The world they knew was no longer simple, it had fractured like a prism, scattering light and shadow in unpredictable ways. The fragments of Bereshka's power were said to be hidden in places where the veil between realms was thin, ancient ruins swallowed by the sea, mountains where stars whispered secrets, and forgotten temples buried beneath deserts of glass. Their first destination was the ruins of Seraphis, a submerged city beneath the azure waves of the sapphire expanse. Legends told of a colossal crystal heart, pulsing with primordial energy, buried within the sunken temples. As their ship approached the coastline, Yori felt the familiar tug of the eye of a Matsurin. Its light flickered anxiously, sensing the proximity of a fragment. The sea was eerily still, a mirror reflecting a sky that seemed impossibly vast. Beneath the surface, the ruins shimmered like ghosts, their spires and arches cloaked in kelp and coral. Diving into the depths, the group navigated through labyrinthine corridors carved from living stone. Faint glyphs glowed on the walls, illuminating their path like stars in an underwater night. At the heart of the ruins, they found the crystal heart, an enormous shard radiating with an inner light, encased in a cage of coral and enchanted chains. As Yori reached out to touch it, a shadow moved. From the darkness emerged a figure cloaked in abyssal robes, eyes glowing like drowned lanterns. "You seek what does not belong to you," the figure intoned. "I am Morvath, the Tidebreaker, guardian of the deep secret." Morvath's voice echoed through the water, weaving waves of cold and despair. Yori stood firm, raising the eye. "We seek to restore balance, to prevent the old ones from undoing creation." Morvath's lips curled into a smile beneath his hood. "Balance is a lie of mortals. Power is eternal." The battle that followed was a clash of wills and elements. Morvath summoned tidal forces, twisting currents into blades of water. Rin's chants wove shields of sound, deflecting the assault, while Saya's presence calmed the raging sea around them. Yori focused the glyph seed's light, channeling the ancient songs of the new tongue. The crystal heart pulsed in response, resonating with his will. With a final surge, Yori shattered Morvath's defenses, binding the Tidebreaker in chains of light. Morvath's form dissolved into mist. "This is not the end," he whispered. Back on the ship, the crystal heart safely secured, the group contemplated their next move. The next fragment lies in the Skyfall Peaks, Lyra said, tracing a star map. A place where gravity thins, and the stars fall like rain. Ren shivered. That place is cursed. Few who go there return. Saya's eyes gleamed. We have no choice. The journey to the peaks tested them beyond endurance. Storms raged, and the very air seemed thin enough to crack lungs. But the bonds between them grew stronger, a melody of trust and determination in a world teetering on the edge. At the summit, beneath a cascade of shimmering meteorites, they found a shard of obsidian crackling with cosmic energy, the second fragment. But it was guarded. Not by gods or monsters, but by memories. Specters of their pasts, twisted and broken, emerged from the shadows that questioned their resolve and threatened to consume their very identities. Yuri faced visions of failure, Ren relived moments of loss, and Saya confronted the echoes of silence that once tried to claim her. Together, they fought not just the specters, but their own doubts, using the strength of their shared journey and the words of the new tongue to dispel the darkness. The obsidian shard was theirs. As they left the peaks, the sky fractured with a rumble, an ominous signal that their quest had attracted the attention of powers beyond understanding. Their final destination lay in the heart of the desert, a vast sea of glass and flame, where the last fragment awaited beneath the sands. With the weight of 2 shards secured, the group prepared for the perilous crossing, knowing that the ultimate test awaited them. The dream that remains hung in fragile balance. And the song was far from over. The desert stretched endlessly, an ocean of burning glass and swirling sands. The heat was a living thing, pressing down on Yuri and his companions, threatening to melt their resolve as surely as their bodies. The last fragment lay buried somewhere beneath this inferno, an ember of power that could either save or shatter the new tongue forever. Each step forward was a battle. The wind howled like ancient spirits, carrying voices that twisted words into lies and doubt. Yuri felt the eye of a Matsurin growing warm against his chest, pulsing with urgency as if warning them of the final trial. Ren's voice broke the silence. The heart is not just a place. It's a test. The desert will strip away your truth, leaving only what's real. Saya's gaze was steady. Then we face it together. The trio pressed deeper, guided by the shimmer of a distant flame that flickered beneath the horizon, a beacon in the sea of heat. Suddenly, the sands beneath their feet shifted. The ground opened like a wound, revealing a cavern glowing with molten crystal and pulsating veins of light. This was the inner sanctum, the resting place of the final fragment. But guarding it was a colossal being, a figure forged from fire and stone, eyes burning coals of ancient wrath. The Flame Sentinel. With a roar that shook the cavern walls, it surged forward, flames trailing like comets. The battle was fierce and unforgiving. Yuri chanted the new tongue's verses, weaving shields of light to protect his friends. Ren summoned winds of cooling mist, clashing with the sentinel's heat. Saya moved like a shadow, striking with precision and grace, her every action a dance of balance. The eye of Amatsurin glowed brighter than ever as Yori focused its power, piercing the sentinel's fiery armor. With a final, resonant chant, the sentinel shattered into sparks, dissolving into the air. At the cavern's heart lay the last fragment, a shard of pure, glowing flame, cradled in a lotus of crystal. Yori reached out, feeling its heat pulse with life. As his fingers touched it, the shard merged with the glyph seed, bursting forth in a cascade of light that filled the cavern with radiant warmth. Outside, the desert winds calmed. The sky cleared. And for the first time in an age, the stars sang. Returning to Kirinoya, the group brought with them the fragments now united as one. The new tongue, once fractured and fragile, was whole again. Yori stood before the villagers, holding the glowing glyph seed aloft. "This is our story," he proclaimed. "Of loss and hope, silence and song. We are the dreamers, the bearers of the new tongue. And our voice will never fade." The villagers cheered, their voices rising in harmony, a chorus that echoed across the mountains and stars. And as the moon watched silently from above, the world remembered how to speak once more. The seasons turned, and Kirinoya blossomed anew under skies that whispered ancient songs of hope and renewal. The scars left by gods and shadows had faded, replaced by the vibrant tapestry of life woven by its people. Yet, in the heart of the village, a quiet stillness lingered, a testament to the sacrifices made, the battles fought, and the voices united. Yori stood once more on the temple's terrace, the glyph seed resting warmly against his palm. Rin and Saya approached, their faces serene but carrying the depth of those who had seen worlds unravel and rebuild. Together, they gazed upon the horizon where earth met stars, where dreams and reality intertwined. "Do you think it's truly over?" Saya asked softly. Yori smiled, eyes reflecting the dawn's first light. "The story never truly ends. It lives on in every whispered word, every song sung beneath the moon, every heartbeat that remembers." Rin nodded. "We are the keepers now, not of silence, but of balance. The song continues because we carry it." A gentle breeze stirred the petals of the cherry blossoms, scattering them like memories dancing in the wind. And high above, the sky mirrored the earth's melody, the eternal dance of beginnings and endings, woven together by the voices of those who dared to listen. The new tongue had been born, not from power or fear, but from choice, courage, and the unbreakable bonds of friendship. As Yori, Rin, and Saya walked down the temple steps, the village behind them hummed with life, and the stars above sang the promise of countless stories yet to be told. Tuta. The echoes of the new tongue, a journey beyond silence. Amota. In a world where ancient gods sleep beneath broken seals and forgotten languages hold the key to balance, three souls, Yori, Rin, and Saya, embark on a perilous quest to restore the new tongue, a language born from memory, sacrifice, and hope. Facing cosmic gods, spectral shadows, and their own inner demons, they must gather scattered fragments of power to prevent the unraveling of meaning itself. This epic tale weaves fantasy, mystery, and the power of connection in a saga where every word sung is a step toward salvation or doom. Join them as they challenge fate, confront silence, and ignite a melody that will echo through eternity.